Let me do a quick prayer before we start. Master Jesus, here we are, another Saturday, between friends, between Kardec and his teachings, asking for have a brilliant opportunity again to learn, to share, to clarify some of my doubts. Be with us through this study, today and always. So be it.
So be it.
Amen.
So let me share the book. I believe you can see now. We have stopped last weekend on the item 25. So I'm going to go through the beginning and let's have another beautiful study. Among the phenomena cited as proof for the actions of a concealed power, there are those who are obviously contrary to all known laws of nature. Hence, isn't it correct to question them? We have to remember when this question was done on the 1800s, what we knew as a law of nature was something. Today, what we know as a law of nature is a bit different. We already have a glance of what will be the future. All those satellites flying around the space are bringing things, and why I'm saying things, because people don't know what it is yet, bringing new information, bringing new possibilities. And some of the articles we may see already question if we know what is there. So I believe laws of nature, they are very stable, they don't change. What changes is our capacity to identify them, to learn new laws. And that, I think, is a constant in our lives, in our existences, because what we know today definitely will be different than what we will know in 200 years from now. And the law is the same. The law is there. Nothing changes. But there are laws that we do not know. There are laws that we do not understand correctly. And that is beautiful, in my opinion. It just so happens that humans are far from knowing about all the laws of nature. If they knew about them, it would imply that they were highly evolved spirits. And something that came to my mind now is that many years ago, speaking about a specific subject that we were researching at the time, the benefactors, they said to us, we are studying this subject right now, here in our side. Meaning, they also do not know everything. They have to learn. They have to continue evolve their capacity, what they understand, what they can see. So that was like 10 years ago when the Spirit was saying that. We are studying that matter right now. A couple of years later, in another discussion with them, I was told that one of them was studying genetics. A couple of years later, on Earth, a new subject has come to light with the name of epigenetics. So things are evolving constantly, constantly, on both sides of the life. However, every day there are incidents to disprove those who think they know everything, who intend to impose limits of nature. Limits on nature. Impose limits on nature, in my own opinion, is like impose limits on God. And I don't think we can. I think we can know part of it. I think we can have limited perception of what is in front of us, but not everything. And yet they are no less proud of themselves at the fact. By constantly unveiling new mysteries, God warned people that they must distrust their own knowledge, because a day will come in which the knowledge of most learned person will be confounded. This is something that I could have used before, and I will highlight here because I think that is beautiful, and I will use in a week time. But look at that. God is warning us that we should not trust our own knowledge, meaning that things will always and constantly will change. Our perception will always change. Our knowledge will always improve. And when God brings us something to, let's say, confront what we know, it's because it's time to learn something new, meaning that we are prepared to move another step forward. Every day, don't you see examples of objects that are impelled by a motion that is capable of overcoming the power of gravity? Does a ball thrown in the air momentarily overcome this force? Few humans who regard yourself as a being so learned and whose foolish vanity is confused at every turn, you must realize that you are still so very small. We are very small. And sometimes we see some of us, human beings, putting themselves in a pedestal, like I'm the top of what I think I know. And if something new comes, I will reject because I'm the best one on that area. I'm not prepared to listen to anything else. And we lose great opportunities. So I encourage everyone that when we hear something different than what we believe, stop and listen. Try to bring that theory or that possibility to see how that will work in the practice. Perhaps you make your life easier. And you save time as well, because you save time in your own evolution. The above explanations are clear, categorical, and ambiguous. From them, we may emphasize the crucial points that the universal fluid which harbors the principle of life is the chief agent in manifestations, and that this agent receives its impulse from the spirit, whether incarnate or discarnate. So here we have something very important. The impulse on the fluid, on the universal cosmic fluid, and then other fluids that derivates from that, can be receiving inputs from the discarnated and incarnated spirits. When we realize that, we start to feel like we are empowered to do things that many people feel like is a miracle. But no, we do have the meaning. We do have the capacity. We don't know how to use, perhaps. And when Jesus was on earth, he said, "You are gods." You just don't know that. You don't know how to be one. This condensed fluid comprises the perispirit or semi-material envelope of the spirit. When incarnate, the perispirit is connected to the matter of the body. In errant state, it is free. While the spirit is incarnate, the substance of its perispirit is more or less bound, more or less adherent to it. If we may put it so, in certain individuals, there is a kind of emanation of this fluid as a result of particular conditions to the physical composition. So, to the physical body, is some part of the physical body that allows that to happen, which is, properly speaking, what produces physical effects, mediums. So, this particular condition of the physical body is what allow mediums of physical effects to exist, to act. Is something organic. The greater or lesser abundance of the emanation of this animalized fluid and the ease with which it is combined determines the medium's power. We're talking about ectoplasm here, right? This emanation is not permanent, however, which explains the intermittency of the ability, meaning someone that can produce physical effects phenomena today, in some time in the future, may not have that capacity anymore. Because as we see here, it is related to the physical body, is connected to the all physical body. Let us make a comparison. When we want to strike something that is some distance away, we first determine to do so with our thought. But thought alone cannot actualize our intent. We need an intermediary which our thought will direct: a stick, a projectile, a blast of air, etc. Note further that our thought cannot act directly upon the stick, for if we do not touch it, it will not act by itself. I think that here is interesting, and I'll bring some personal point of views to make people think, complain, disagree. A lot of people think the spirits, they can do everything by thought. Is that true? Or they need some vehicle to make it happen? We are spirits. We think. What we think from our spirit is transferred to our perispirit, and then is transferred to our physical body. And then my physical body can get this pen. If I'm thinking, I can guarantee you I'm thinking very hard now. I want the pen to be in front of the camera. It's not happening. Because I'm not using the go-between, my spirit and the pen. What is the go-between? The perispirit and my physical body. And now again I can get it. So just my thought is not sufficient to make the pen to move. What about the spiritual world? Can we do everything by thought? Or do we need another go-between between the spirit that is different than perispirit and the action I want to produce? Maybe I need my perispirit to be able to move and the spiritual pen and the spiritual world. But that is food for thought, okay, for the future. Our thought, which is the spirit itself incarnated in our body, is united to the body by the perispirit and cannot act upon the body without it. In the same way that it cannot act upon the stick without the help of the body. And a good thing to think here as well is that if that is true, when I'm in the mediumship meeting and the spirit is talking through me, how that happen? If the spirit alone cannot interfere with our body or matter, perispirit come closer to perispirit, they get connected, and then the thought of the spirit is transferred to the thought of our spirit, perispirit, and go to our physical body. Therefore, the spirit acts upon the perispirit, which is the substance with which it has the most affinity. Then the perispirit acts upon the muscles, which in turn enable the hand to pick up the stick and the stick to strike the target. When the spirit is not incarnate, it requires an instrument, the fluid that aids it in making the object carry out the impulse of its will. Therefore, again, The thought from the spirit is not enough to produce the stick to move. The thought from the spirit needs the fluid to make it happen. Another go between. There is always something in between the thought of the spirit and what it is producing. Therefore, when an object is moved, lifted, or thrown through the air, the spirit does not take hold of it. And now I remember what Muni explained last week. Even when I am getting the pen, it's a kind of illusion that I'm getting the pen because of the electron. I don't know, explain what Muni said, but I thought it was very nice. But it's a kind of illusion that we are grabbing the pen. Between my fingers and the pen, there are layers that only Munir knows how to explain. I don't know Munir. And then start to make more sense. It's saturated, so to speak, with its fluid, combined with the medium's fluid. Momentarily animated thereby, the object acts like a living being, with the difference that it does not have a will of its own, but instead obey the impulse of the spirit's will. Thus, the vital fluid impelled by the spirit handles inert objects with artificial and momentary life. Since the perispirit is nothing other than this vital fluid itself, it follows that the incarnate spirit, by means of its perispirit, is what gives life to its own body, and it stays united to it as long as its organization enables it to. I think we have a lot of things on that test here. Well, first thing, when you're talking about moving objects, this is not permanent. It lasts for a period of time, and the period of time is related to something interacting with the object that's moving. When this in-between, this go-between ceases, the movement stops. The object does not gain life. Okay? It is bringing to us here another very interesting thing. Perispirit is made of fluid. Our physical body is made of fluids. Different type of fluid, but made of fluid. The perispirit is the instrument, is the first instrument that the spirit will use to make something move. It's not the only one. The perispirit moves the fluid that will move the object. When the spirit withdraws, the body dies. I think we all agree with that, right? That's what we call death. So, if instead of a table we took a wooden statue and act upon it like we did upon the table, we would have a statue that could move about and produce raps in response to a question. In other words, we would have a statue that was momentarily animated with artificial life. Besides talking tables, we would also have talking statues. How much light this explanation casts over the infinite number of phenomena, therefore inexplicable. How many allegories and mysterious effects it resolves. I think that this topic nowadays is important just to allow us to understand the phenomena, how things happen. And if we compare how this phenomena happens and how today phenomena is happening, it does give us the land to make us feel comfortable with the level of information. In spite of all evidence, disbelievers object that the phenomena of levitation of tables without a mean of support is impossible because it is contrary to the law of gravity. First, we will respond that denial in and of itself is not proof. How many things we don't believe? How many things we don't believe on the Spiritism? You should have few things you don't believe on the Spiritism. Because we all do. Until we are confronted with the practical experience. And then even like that, sometimes people do not believe their eyes, do not believe what they feel, do not believe what they are living in front of them. So it's very natural there are things that we don't believe. But if I don't believe in something, it does not mean it does not exist. I would encourage people that do not believe in something to do research, try to be open to the possibility, and if possible, try to do experimentations about it. That will bring you a little bit more weight in what you don't believe, or perhaps make you believe. But either way, if you believe or if you don't believe, I strongly recommend that we all do some research and do some trials at least. That's the only thing that will give us the confidence if something works or not working, if it is possible or is not possible, if it's positive or if it's not positive. Otherwise, it's just what I think. And honestly, what I think has very little weight in the universal law. If it is a universal law, eventually that will come to light. If I trust, if I believe or not. Second, the phenomena is real. It is somehow contrary to all known laws, which would prove one thing. The phenomena originates from an unknown law, and those who deny the fact cannot claim to know about all the laws of the nature. I think that if we speak with a scientist, he will not be happy because he thinks he knows everything. He will not be happy that he's not able to understand what is in front of his eyes. So it's better to try to create a theory to discredit what I don't believe or what I don't know than to go a little bit closer to the phenomena, walk a little bit more, and try to understand better what I see and I don't understand today. We have just explained this unknown law. Nevertheless, disbelievers will not regard our explanation as sufficient, since it was provided by spirits who have shed the earthly garments instead of spirits who still wear theirs and occupy a seat in the academy. Hence, if the spirit of Arago had revealed this law while he was still alive, they would all have accepted with eyes shut tight. But if given by the exact same spirit after death, it would be poor nonsense. Why so? Because they believe that since Arago is dead, since everything he believed is dead forever, since everything he believes is dead forever, we have no intention of dissuading them. Nevertheless, since this objection might trouble certain persons, we will try to respond to them from their own point of view. That is, we will momentarily set aside the artificial life explanation. When one creates a vacuum in a bell glass by using a vacuum pump, the bell glass sticks to the base and it is impossible to unstick the glass because of the air pressure holding it down. If the air is put back into it, the bell glass is easy to unstick because the air pressure has been restored to equilibrium. And if it is left to itself, it will remain on the plate due to the law of gravity. However, if the air pressure inside the bell glass becomes greater than the air on the outside. The glass will rise in spite of gravity. If a rapid and forceful current of air is employed, the glass will remain suspended in the air without any visible means of support. Like what happened with those dolls that spin up on the spray of a water fountain. So why wouldn't the universal fluid, the basic elements of all matter, accumulated around the table, not have the ability to increase or decrease the table's specific relative weight, just like the air does with the bell glass, or hydrogen does with balloon, without derogating from the law of gravity? Do you know about all the properties and the full power of this fluid? No? Well then, do not deny a fact simply because you cannot explain it. And I think we all are a bit like that, right? When I cannot understand something or I cannot believe in something, and just deny it. But we should try to avoid that. And that understanding here was in the 1800s. If I had moved those explanations to the 500 years after Christ, do you think they would understand what is written? Do you think they could conceive what was vacuum? Do you think they would conceive what was a balloon? Maybe. But the great majority of people will totally say it's not possible, it does not exist. Let us return to the explanation of how a table moves. If a spirit can lift a table by means indicated, then it can lift anything else as well. An armchair, for example. And if it can lift an armchair, it can also lift it with a person sitting in it, if it uses enough force. Thus, we have provided an explanation for the phenomenon that has been produced 100 times by Mr. Home himself and by others. He repeated on a recent trip to London, and in order to prove to this audience that they were not victims of any optical illusion, he made a mark on the ceiling with a pencil and also allowed them to pass beneath the chair. Everyone knows that Mr. Home is a powerful physical effect medium. In this instance, he was both efficient. He was both the efficient cause and the levitated object itself. Through my studies over the years, I saw books, pictures, reports for the two great mediums of physical effects doing levitations. There was Douglas Home and Mirabelli in Brazil. There were pictures taken, there were people watching, that was registered. So, believe or not, it's up to you. Increase and decrease in the weight of objects. We alluded earlier to the possible increasing of an object weight, which is a phenomenon that has in fact been produced at times, and about which there is nothing any more abnormal than the resistance of a bell glass caused by atmospheric pressure. Under the influence of certain mediums, we have seen very light objects offer the same sort of resistance, and then suddenly yield to very little effort. With the bell glass experiment, the object in reality weighs no more or less than it normally does. It just seems heavier because of the outside cause acting upon it. The same thing probably happened with the table. It continues to maintain its intrinsic weight since its mass has not been increased, but an outside force opposes its movement. The cause may be in the surrounding fluid that penetrates it, just as the bell glass causes the atmospheric pressure. Perform the bell glass experiment in front of an unlearned peasant, and he will not understand that his acting agent is actually the air that he cannot see. It would be very easy to persuade him that it was the devil's work. One could perhaps think that since the fluid is imponderable, then its accumulation could not increase the object weight. Agreed. However, notice that if we have employed the word accumulation, it is to make a comparison and not to identify the fluid with the air. Yes, it may be imponderable, nevertheless, there is nothing to prove that it is. Its essential nature is unknown to us, and we are far from knowing about all of its properties. So the spirits, they are telling us they don't know everything. They are far from know everything. Perhaps if we ask the same question today, you would have a different answer. Before knowing about the weight of air, no one would have suspected such an effect to be possible. Electricity is also classified among the imponderable fluids. Nevertheless, an object can be held down by an electric current and will strongly resist whoever attempts to lift it. It does appear to have become heavier, but simply because of the fact that there is no support to be seen, it would be illogical to conclude that there is none. Hence, a spirit might possess means of leverage unknown to us. Nature proves to us every day that it cannot be limited to the testimony of our senses. One remarkable phenomenon, of which we have many similar examples, could only be explained by a similar cause. It involves a young and delicate lady who, by using only 2 fingers and as easily as she would a feather, can lift a strong and healthy man along with the chair upon which he is sitting. The intermittent expression of the faculty in this type of phenomena proves that its cause is foreign to the person who possesses it. Nowadays, we don't see many physical effects phenomena. There is no, as far as I understand, there's no reason to have physical effects anymore, because I think that was a time in age that was required, and possibly it was required to get attention. Bear in mind, if it wasn't for the turntables, Kardec would not have been drawn to its attention, or even perhaps decide to elaborate the philosophy as he did. So at that time, there was a reason for it. Nowadays, I do not see a reason for it. Lately, the physical effects manifestation happens, but for people, for help people, to assist people in need. I'm talking. You guys are not talking at all today, huh? Chapter 5. Spontaneous physical manifestations. Noises, racket, and disturbances. The phenomena we have just dealt with are usually artificially produced. However, they sometimes occur spontaneously without the participant will, and in fact, they almost always become quite untimely. Furthermore, that excludes them from the notion that they are the effects of an imagination that has become overexcited by a spirit's idea. is that they occur amongst persons who have never ever heard of Spiritism, and at times when they are least expected. This phenomena, which may be regarded as involving natural spirits practice, are very important because they exclude any suspicion of contrivance. This is why we have recommended to individuals who concern themselves with spirit phenomena that they gather all the data of this type which they may become aware of, but especially that they carefully determine the reality through the detailed study of the circumstance, and I will highlight it here. Detailed study of circumstance, so that they may assure themselves that they are not the object of a simple illusion or hoax. Of all the spirit's manifestation, the simplest and most frequent are noises and raps. However, it is especially in these cases that we must be on guard against illusion, since there are many natural causes that can produce them. The wind, whistling, or banging an object, our own moving of an object without our awareness of it, an acoustic effect, a hidden animal, an insect, etc. Even off-colored pranks. Besides, the spirit noises have particular characteristics with variable intensity and tone, and which makes them easy to recognize and not to be confused with cracking wood, crackling fire, or the dull of tick-tock of a clock. The rap are dry, sometimes muffled, weak and light, sometimes loud and distinct, even noisy, and they change places and repeat themselves without any mechanical regularity. The most effective means of controlling them, which leaves no doubt as to their origin, is to subject them to our will. If the noises make themselves heard wherever we so indicate, if they respond to our thought by repeating themselves the number of times we request, and if they increase or decrease the intensity, we cannot deny that there is an intelligent cause present. Nevertheless, the lack of such a response does not necessarily prove the contrary. And then I remember what we were discussing last week. If you guys have doubt, if you have or not have, start to talk it to your phenomena, to your apps. Okay, now I want you to do 2, 3, 4, whatever, just to see if the response you may have is in line with what you're asking. It's a way to see if the phenomenon is true or not true. Hi, Osoli.
Morning, everybody. Uh, Guilherme, I remember that it was so real. I don't know if you have in my story to you when you invite me to works some years ago. Uh, you know, it was a it's another thing is not only we can uh, spirits we can do many things and we can is it is in the is possible like this example of the girl. Oh, uh, you know it was a if it was the opposite, I could find it. I could feel it, my feelings in my arms. This so strong spirit. So took me, but he was very, very big. big hands, very big hands, and and the big and it was a green colored skin, about green colored. But he like see, I feel suddenly that he was desperate because I was like a piece of wood for him, for so in the heaven. So he to me, oh, you're gonna take it, and the and another. So when I called it, and again, so he would like slip me. He slipped me. He didn't want to do that. And I understood that when I begged to Jesus to help him, or help me too, because I was a little bit afraid, but not so afraid. I understood that he would like be savior or something. So, and I bet to Jesus, I begged to Jesus, as so I don't know how many minutes, and suddenly he slept. So he slept, but I could feel his weight over his arms. So there was. Is it that possible? Because I say I feel that I felt that I just have got to the bed, so I wasn't sleeping, but maybe I was relaxed. When I was relaxed to sleep, I felt him back on me, like you know.
What I
Yes. Mm.
would say. Never say that to your doctor. Otherwise, you may end up.
And you used to you say the same as my friend said to me. Talk it to the they think you are crazy people, or have
Doctor.
imagination some
And,
they I know, but I know you believe me. People here, I know you believe me, but it was a camp, I must say. It man, yeah, I as my intuition said at that time, that moment, at he needs help. He wasn't a bad spirit. He would like you, because maybe he agreed. He created with error or mistake he did. Okay, would like be come around the situation he had. This I understood.
yeah, it is a
Mhm.
possibility. It is a possibility. But as Kardec recommend, we have to be thorough in our evaluation. We have to evaluate if we have any other cause that could be making the phenomena that we think is the phenomena. But as through the books, we have access to information that describes to us that it's possible to have that type of phenomena with some mediums. Okay, so let's go to the item 84.
Okay.
However, after a detailed examination, we accept the fact that the noise of any other effect, a real manifestation, it would be it. Sorry, would it then be reasonable for us to be afraid of them? Assuredly not, since this case will pose no danger. Only persons who believe that the devil is involved can be affected adversely by them, like children who fear werewolves, boogeymen. Under certain circumstances, we must agree these manifestations take on very disagreeable proportions and persistence. Therefore, those who experience them naturally desire to get rid of them. Consequently, an explanation regarding the matter is required. And then something caught my attention here. A lot of people, they just come to studies, to the spirit center, because they want to get rid of what is bothering them. They do not understand that sometimes when we are in front of such phenomena, is because that is a wake-up call. I would say that a good part of people that come to the spirit center, is trying just to fix what they see as a problem. They don't want to get a deeper knowledge of what is happening. They don't want to know what is going on. They just want to they want the magic wand. Someone that comes, okay, that's over. And that does not exist. We have already stated that physical manifestations are meant to call our attention to something and to convince us that there is a superhuman power present. We have also stated that highly evolved spirits do not concern themselves directly with these manifestations and that they use less evolved spirits to produce them, just as we use servants for heavier tasks. Highly evolved spirits do so for the purpose we have just indicated. After such purpose has been achieved, and since it is no longer needed, the manifestation ceases. One or two examples will make the matter more intelligible. Several years ago, when I first began to study of Spiritism, I was involved with the subject one evening when I heard raps and sounded all around me for 4 consecutive hours. It was the first time this had happened. I verified that there was no incidental cause involved, but at the moment I was not able to learn any more about it. At the time, I frequently met with an excellent writing medium. So the next day I questioned the spirit who normally communicated through him as to what had caused the raps. You see, Kardec is giving us here a beautiful note that possibly a lot of people will not pay attention on it. Kardec, he used to ask the spirits. Kardec, he used to deal with the spirits as we speak to one another. There was not that massive barrier that you cannot speak to spirit. You cannot ask your benefactor or spirit center benefactor for his opinion or for his support in specific subjects. He did. He had been in contact with something, with a phenomena. He could not speak to the spirit producing the phenomena if it was a spirit producing phenomena directly. So next day when he was with the medium of his trust, he asked, and he had this answer. The spirit answered me. It was your familiar spirit wanting to speak with you. And what did he want to say to me? You can ask him yourself because he's here right now. He's here. He is right here. So I asked him, and he identified himself using an allegorical name. Other spirits told me afterwards that he belonged to a very high order and that he had performed a very important role on earth. He pointed out errors in my work, indicating the exact lines where I could find them. He gave me useful and wise advice and added that he would always be with me and would answer me whenever I want to question him. Since then, this spirit has in fact never left me. He has given me numerous highly valuable proofs, and his benevolent and effective intervention has helped me both in the everyday problems of physical life and with metaphysical ones. However, ever since that first conversation, the raps have ceased. So possibly it was him. What did he in fact want? He wanted to establish regular communications with me, but to do so, he had to alert me to his presence. Having done so, he explained his motives and we established a regular relationship. The raps were no longer necessary. Sorry. It is no longer necessary to beat a drum to awaken soldiers when they have already arisen. A very similar case involved one of our friends. For quite some time, he had heard various noises around his room, and which became very annoying. Having an opportunity to interview his father's spirit via a writing medium, he learned what it was that those spirits wanted. He fulfilled the request, and from then on, no longer heard the noises. He would point out that persons who have regular and easy means of communicating with spirits are much less subject to manifestations of this kind, which is understandable. They don't have to use drums, they don't have to do raps, because they can talk to people, they can write to people, they are there. It's just missing the opportunity or the means to communicate effectively. And when they do so, there's no need to make those noises or anything else, right? It is a shame that people that do have that possibility decide not to use them. Use them for good, to do good things, to help people, to do charity. Not to ask if I should sell my car, if I should buy this apartment, if I should do this or should do that. No, that's another thing. Spontaneous manifestations are not always limited to noise and raps. And going back to what I just said, even if you ask your spirit, familiar spirits or spirits that are close to you, and if they answer, bear in mind that highly evolved spirits, they will not. They will tell you that is your responsibility to deal with earthly matters. So if you're getting answers of some sort, beware. You may not have the right answer, or the right spirit giving you that answer. Spontaneous manifestations are not always limited to noises and raps. They sometimes degenerate into variable rackets and disturbances. Furniture and other objects are flipped over. Various projectiles are hurled about outside the room. Doors and windows are opened and closed by invisible hands, and window panes are broken. None of this can be attributed to illusion. This disorder is quite often very real. Thought at times it is only apparent. A racket may be heard in an adjoining room. The crash of dinnerware as it apparently hits the floor, or logs of wood rolling around. Then, when one runs to investigate, everything is found to be peaceful and in order. However, leave the room and the tumult starts all over again. Oh, I was starting to finish. Such manifestations are neither rare nor new, and there are few local chronicles that do not contain some account of this type. There is no doubt that fear has often exaggerated the facts, which have assumed gigantically ridiculous proportions when passed from one person to next. With the help of superstition, the houses in which some phenomena occur have been considered as being haunted by the devil. Hence, all the fantastic and horrifying fables of ghosts. Deception, on the other hand, has not lost the opportunity to exploit such a credulity in its own profit. Even when they are reduced to reality, one may certainly understand the impression that incidents of this kind can have on weak characters who have been predisposed to superstitious notions by education. The safest way to avoid the troubles that can arise from these incidents, because they cannot be prevented, is to make the truth known. The simplest incidents become frightening when the causes behind them are unknown. When there is finally widespread familiarity with the spirits, and when those with whom they communicate no longer believe they are dealing with a legion of demons, fear will disappear completely. in Revue Spirit, many authentic occurrences of this kind have been recorded, among which are the stories of rapping of Bergzanberg, oh dear, whose nastily influence lasts 8 years, May, June, and July 1858. Then the spirits of Diebelsdorf. I think those spirits like strange names. And one of Noyer Street in Paris, the spirit of Castelnaudary, entitled L'Histoire d'un Damé, the one of the manufacturers of St. Petersburg, and many others. So we're going to stop here. But what we can see that it can take from there is we need to understand the phenomena. We need to spend time, do, as I said in the beginning, research, do things to make us comfortable with the phenomena that's happening. We have the opportunity because luckily, we have been made acquainted to the Spiritism. If we don't know enough, it's a good opportunity to study, to research, and everything else. And I believe, again, when we are in face of such a thing, such a phenomena, is to get our attention, as Kardec said himself, getting our attention to allow us to start to do something positive in what we know and we are not accustomed to. I think Spiritism brings to us a magnificent amount of information that will allow us to be comfortable, not be afraid, dissipate any fear that we may have, and understand that spirit and spirit's phenomena are natural. We cannot avoid it. Even if you don't believe it, we cannot avoid it, period. It's there. We are surrounded. I may decide not to listen. I may decide not to believe. It's up to everyone. Or you may decide to understand with your different lenses because other people understand with different lenses. And that's not a problem, but you cannot avoid it. It's a natural phenomenon. So we are ending here today. I'm very happy Pablo is here too. And I'm passing to Pablo.
Hello, my friends. Let's close our eyes, calm our hearts and minds, and let's be thankful because so much knowledge has been shared with us. Let us ask God and our Master Jesus to inspire us to understand what is being shared and even to make us question some of the logic. But let's not be indifferent. So let's think that we are trying to enhance ourselves with knowledge, understanding, and getting rid of unnecessary fear and doubts regarding mediumship. And overall, let's be thankful for us being here today, sheltered amongst friends, being blessed. And let's share a bit of this blessing with everyone, sending love to our loved ones, to the ones out there in the street, to the ones in hospitals, to the ones in the spirit world that find themselves confused or lost. Let's send our love. Let's be thankful. And let's ask for a peaceful weekend. So be it.
So, looking forward to see you guys next weekend.
Bye.
Wonderful weekend,
Bye.
guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.